Hello, I am David Tuma. I'm here today because I am excited about exceptional practices that can change the world of software engineering. And I want to share a few of those ideas with you today. These ideas will be new to many of you, so I'm grateful to share for an opportunity to share a vision of what's possible. If you're already familiar with these ideas, this presentation is something that you can share with others in your organization to inspire them too. So for context on why these are so important to me, I would like to start by sharing a little bit of my journey, starting with an unforgettably dark moment in my career. I had been working terribly long hours and was sleeping fitfully in my extended stay hotel room when at 3 a.m. I was jarred awake by my cell phone ringing. I answered in a stupor only to realize or recognize the voice of our customer's vice president. As I struggled to focus, I began to realize that about a dozen engineers and executives were also on the conference call, all working to contain the crisis from a nightly batch process that had gone terribly wrong. Um, I pulled my thoughts together to offer my advice. So it seemed clear that I wouldn't be getting any more sleep and knew that this was just the start of another very long day. But backing up, how did we get here? Our customer had a hard deadline driven by regulatory requirements. Our team had identified the work that would be needed and had worked diligently, delivering incremental agile releases. But as the regulatory deadline approached, it became clear that the target functionality wouldn't be ready in time. Um, Unfortunately, it was too late to change course. The customer's hands were tied. They absolutely needed a system. Failure wasn't an option, but at this point, success wasn't either. Everyone was caught between a rock and a desperately hard place. In the last 2 months of heroic efforts, the team killed themselves to have a bare bones functional system ready in time. And it seemed like a relief to everyone that the system was able to go live. But that was just the start of the nightmare. Of course, there hadn't been enough time to do things right. So parts of the system were held together by batch scripts and duct tape. Bugs and missing functionality ate us alive. It seemed like there was a new dumpster fire every day, sometimes every hour. We all struggled to put out these fires, but the technical debt that we'd accumulated racing toward launch pulled us down into the quagmire. It was all we could do, just to put one foot in front of the other. Now, I knew I had it bad as a developer, but then I would see our call center folks with tears streaming down their face after a long shift of dealing with irate users. Our company pulled out all the financial stops to try to stem the bleeding. They brought in new people to help with customer management, production support, and emergency development, but it was too little and too late. Weeks stretched into months, and we moved beyond burnout into a shared fatalism. One by one, people escaped the nightmare by submitting their resignations. And several months in, I was the only person left who had any deep technical understanding of several major parts of the system. And of course, the one to call at 3 a.m. when no one else knew what to do. A hellish environment really prompts you to look within yourself. What went wrong? I mean, ultimately, we had a great team and a great vision for the product. The work was just very simply bigger and more complex than we had estimated, and we slipped our schedule. And then as a result, everything came down like a house of cards. But I wasn't satisfied with that answer. Were there early warning flags we missed? Could we have done something differently? I mean, if not, Am I destined to repeat this again? Now, to be sure, that project was a worst case scenario. We encountered a perfect storm of underestimates, complexity, changing requirements, and hard deadlines. But everyone wants software faster and cheaper. So schedule pressures are a given in every project. It's just a matter of degree. So was it my fate in life to sacrifice myself over and over, caught between managers who wanted to slash costs and customers who want it yesterday? I refused to believe that that was the case. And I became a software developer because I fell in love with the idea that I could create anything that my mind could envision. I really love the joy of creating, and I love the feeling I get from seeing a customer who's delighted in the products that I built. So I committed myself to finding ways to make that happen every single time. Now, to be sure, agile methodologies provide some of the biggest steps our community has taken toward that vision, but they alone are not enough. Our customers need and expect more every year. If we want to delight them, it's our challenge to continually find ways to shatter the old paradigms. And this includes finding ways to improve schedule predictability without sacrificing agility. Because if we aren't a master of our schedule, it will be a master of us. But if we can find ways to take control, we can be more responsive to customer needs, more trustworthy, and we can empower our customers to make smarter decisions that let them be more agile. And that's why I'm so excited to be here today. In my search, I found some exceptional agile practices that have changed my life. Now, I can't take credit for these ideas. They were created by the Software Engineering Institute at Carnegie Mellon University, but they are so transformative that I've devoted my recent career toward building open source tools that help teams and individuals like yourselves to take control. I wish I had more time to teach you the ins and outs of these practices, but in the time we have, I'll touch on the highlights so you have a taste of what's possible. And I don't want this to be the end of our time together. At the end of the presentation, I'll share a link if you'd like more information. I hope all of you will be inspired to join me in taking agility to the next level. So, to jump right in, I'd like to take you on another journey through the project that transformed my outlook on agile software development. As agile practitioners, our primary drive is a relentless focus on value for the customer. So it's critical for us to understand what our customers need most. Now, traditionally, we've pursued this by seeking agility and our understanding of their functional requirements. This works exceptionally well for some customers, especially those whose requirements may change from one sprint to the next based on shifting priorities, A/B testing, or evolution of their business model. This need for flexibility is what sparked the development of agile methodologies, and it's one of the areas our teams can really shine. But not all customers need that level of flexibility. Other customers may have a pretty good idea of what they want, and they may need to know when they can have it and how much it will cost. They may even have external constraints beyond their control that drive the need for a firm commitment. Now, it's really important to realize that this spectrum does not describe your team's agility. It describes your customer. Some people think that you have to operate toward the left end of the spectrum or else you're not agile. But agility is about skillfully adjusting to all of your customers' needs. It's not just about requirements flexibility. I mean, if your customer needs to know when something will be ready, you should have the skills to make a commitment you can keep. So, as it happens, I found myself once again working for a customer on the right end of the spectrum. They knew what they needed and they knew when they needed it. Rapid iterative deliveries were a smart means to an end, namely the ability to quickly detect misunderstandings in requirements and to minimize rework. But above all, they really needed to be certain when we could deliver the overall release and make sure that it would happen by the given deadline. Now, to be clear, not all customers are that black and white. There really is a spectrum of needs. But, and this is very important, unrealistic schedule expectations can happen anywhere along this spectrum. Missing those expectations can pull you back down into crisis mode and rob you of your agility. And even if you have a flexible customer, like on the left end of the spectrum, you can still encounter an unusual feature or story that jumps the spectrum and has different needs than the rest of your backlog. So it's really critical for us to have a workflow that has the agility to move seamlessly along this spectrum to deliver the exact amount of flexibility versus predictability that our customers need. Now, unfortunately, most of the agile planning tools that are out there in mainstream use provide tool support that is skewed toward the flexible left end of this spectrum. So when a customer needs predictability, these tools don't provide often the support that you need to make a commitment that you can keep. That is what drove me to develop open source tools that support exceptional individuals and interactions. But moving along, since customer needs are not the same, the plans that we create should differ too. If your customer doesn't need precision, you should just make a back of the envelope estimate. More precise estimates, like roughly right or high confidence, require time and effort. This is an investment in predictability, and you get what you pay for. Making the right type of estimate is key to maximizing the planning work not done. So when you deliver an estimate, make it clear to your stakeholders which of these buckets it falls into. Now, uncertainty ranges can be a great way to communicate that uncertainty if your tool supports them. But just having this vocabulary to use when communicating to your stakeholders can help too. So to focus on value, my project team met with our customer to hear their needs and priorities firsthand. They needed a specific set of functionality and had a very firm constraint for final delivery about 8 months away. So our first step was to look at the overall scope and break it into program increments based on priorities and dependencies. Then we created a high confidence estimate for the first program increment and roughly right estimates for the rest. Now, the biggest difference between these is granularity. You can break the work down into smaller pieces when you need more accuracy. There are a lot of ways to estimate effort, like planning poker, t-shirt sizing, etc. And honestly, you and your team are probably doing a better job than you think. The key ingredient is thoughtful engineering judgment by the people who will be doing the work. If your story point estimates were created by a product owner or some other individual, you must revisit them as a team when you build your plan. And now finally, at this point in the planning process, many teams use velocity to estimate their project duration. But velocity-driven plans are inherently back of the envelope, regardless of how much thought you put into refining your backlog. If you need roughly right or high confidence estimates, there's a better way. So one of the things our team did was that we marked up a calendar with the planned time and availability of each team member. This calendar helped us to account for the time-changing variability in team composition, attention, vacation, etc. Then, with a pile of work and a calendar of availability, our tool calculated a capacity-driven plan. So what do I mean by capacity-driven? Here's an example. We'd like to finish a program increment by April 1st. As a team, we have 500 hours worth of availability between now and then. So in the best case scenario, how far down the backlog could that take us? So capacity-driven plans are optimistic, but they're still grounded in reality. And they make it easy to explore trade-offs and alternative plans. Finally, they provide an immediate red flag if you've been overcommitted, which is the case more often than not. So in our case, we could see that our best case plan was still very, very tight. We acknowledged that as a risk, but talked it over as a team and felt that we could adopt an aggressive schedule to meet our customers' needs. And then we did something that changed everything. Self-organizing teams are built around the interactions of self-directed individuals. So our tool automatically created a private personal plan for each one of us. Now, having my own schedule empowered me to take control of the commitment I was making to the team. I could make sure my commitment was reasonable and something I could personally commit to. And then cross-checking our personal schedules with each other made it easy for us to spot common problems. For example, it was easy for us to see that one of our senior developers was going to have way too much work on his plate. So right away, we identified an upfront plan for cross-training so a junior person could take some of that work. Then the team plan just became a roll-up of those personal plans. It was a bottom-up view that got managers out of the way and represented the engineering judgment of empowered individuals. It let the plan be more fine-grained and more agile than any plan I'd ever been a part of before. And it made it where we could all believe in the plan that we had created. Now, some might say, your management already promised the scope, the budget, and the delivery date, so why bother making an estimate at all? Well, my answer would be that when management makes a promise to the customer, that is their commitment. But then the moment that you as a team agree to that preset scope and date, it becomes your commitment. As engineers and professionals, we cannot make a commitment that isn't based on a rational plan. And that plan must be created by the people who will do the work. Sometimes you'll put together this plan, and that plan will show that management's commitment isn't possible. So isn't now, at the very beginning of the project, the best time for everyone to find that out? And even if we weren't being pressed for a commitment by the customer, it was still empowering for us as a self-directed team to take the time to put our minds together and come up with a brilliant plan to tackle the work. We analyzed it from several different angles to come up with the approach that maximized speed and value to the customer. At the end, we had an opportunity to present those alternatives to management and to our stakeholders. We got their agreement, and we were excited as a team that we had a plan we believed in. So, with this plan in hand, we were ready to hit the ground running. And I'm excited to say that our personal plans were transformational. They really are a remarkable tool to help you take control of your work, your schedule, and your personal commitments. Now, we all experience a barrage of things that need our attention. You might not realize just how much mental energy you're expending to juggle all those things in your head. So it's really freeing to have a personal plan that organizes for them for you so that you can focus on value. With our plans, we all knew what we needed to do and what the team needed from us. It kind of supercharged our ability to collaborate and communicate with each other. You know how good it feels to mark something off a to-do list? It feels even more satisfying to see that progress show up on your own personal burn down chart. I would keep that chart on my screen all day long and watch the line jump as I mark it tasks complete. And a tool can give you effortless access to dozens of other personal visualizations that were previously just the purview of team reporting. For example, am I juggling too many open tasks simultaneously? Or is my current task blowing past my expectations of how much time would be required? Or am I getting pulled away from project work to help with unplanned external crises? Or finally, am I forecast to finish tasks in time for my team members who need them? When I would run into any of these or any other problems, I can raise them in the daily stand-up and ask for help. And as it happens, we got a chance to experience that right away in the very first week of our project. This was the week one output from our tool. As a team, your progress is 32% behind where it was expected. Primary cause is that you haven't been able to devote as many hours per week to backlog items as you had planned. Now, I'm a super hard worker, so it would be easy for me to brush this off and silently lament how my team members weren't pulling their weight. But I could look at my own charts, and they laid the problem bare for me to see. I was just as far behind as the rest of the team, both on hours and on actual progress. So we talked it over as a team, and everyone acknowledged that the problem was universal. So in our weekly team meeting, we talked about what to do. This was the first week, so maybe we just needed time to settle into our rhythm. So we decided to focus on minimizing distractions and focus on tackling our backlog. All right. Unfortunately, the pattern continued into week 2. So as we talked it over again, we thought maybe we had just given lip service to our corrective action plans. And so we all made a solemn promise to redouble our focus. So at week 3, as a team, your progress is 29% behind where you expected it to be. The primary cause is that you haven't been able to devote as many hours per week to backlog items as you planned. If work continues at this rate, you will miss your delivery date by 3.2 months. We talked it over and we all swore that we had given it our all this week and we had barely moved the needle. Eliminating distractions had made a small difference for us, but not enough to save the schedule. And 29% overtime from everyone on the team for 8 straight months, that was just out of the question. So we had exhausted the corrective actions that were within our control, and so we had to elevate the problem under management. So we met with them and said, we are laser focused on delivering value for the customer. And so that's why we're coming to you for help. We know the customer has an immovable deadline of October 1st. During our planning sessions, we suspected that might be aggressive, but we embraced the challenge. 3 weeks have passed, and now our data tells us we were too optimistic. To deliver on our customers' needs, we're going to need another 1.5 people on our project. Here's the data that backs up our analysis. So, to all of the software developers, engineers in the room, I would ask, how do you think our management responded? 3 guesses? They said no. In retrospect, I should have expected that. Anytime someone gets bad news, they go through the grieving cycle. Denial and anger are just the first 2 steps. So as exceptional engineers, we can help management work their way through the grieving cycle. But I didn't know that back then. So we replied to management, well, very well. We've shown you our data. So when we finish 3 months late, don't say we didn't warn you. It took time. Management had to go back to the customer and ask for direction. Did the customer have the budget for 1.5 more people, or did they need to reduce scope? I don't think management would have had that difficult conversation if they hadn't had the data to back up the request. There's a great quote by Jim Barksdale. If we have data, let's look at data. If all we have are opinions, then let's go with mine. This interaction with management was really a revelation to me. I had rarely won arguments with management before, but data fundamentally changed this conversation. It gave me a voice, and it empowered management and our customers to make an informed decision. The customer weighed their options and decided to add 1.5 people to our project. It was good. But then I'd like to pause and ask you to reflect, what just happened? We spotted a critical planning mistake and readjusted only 3 weeks into our 8-month schedule. I mean, my mind was blown. Our success didn't come from making a perfect plan. I mean, after all, our estimates were deeply flawed to the point that we were 30% off. But that's okay. Our plan was a map that helped us to see where we are, not a blueprint that constrained our actions. Our success came from comparing reality to the plan and watching for differences. Each one of those discrepancies told us something new about the project. Now, the sad thing is, most teams don't know how to listen to these discrepancies, and they don't detect problems until it's too late. but our tool caught the discrepancies almost immediately, and that early detection gave us plenty of time to react. And of course, it's not enough just to know that a problem exists. To choose the right corrective action, you also need to identify the root cause. You may have a gut feeling, but there are often a number of factors at play, and our mental biases make it challenging to identify how much each of them contribute. With the right data in hand, tools can sort this out automatically. And I find this even more exciting. The tools can also measure the discrepancies quantitatively and use them to autocorrect the remaining plan, give you more accurate forecasts. So of course, that wasn't the only bump in the road we encountered. Change, after all, is inevitable, both internal and external. The customer did have changes to their requirements throughout the project. So we would happily embrace these with new, roughly right plans. Our tool made this easy for us to do. Without a new plan, it's easy to get overcommitted. And when you're overcommitted, basically end up saying no to things by accident because you ran out of time. Those might have been things that were really important to the customer. So making and sharing these new plans with the customer put the control back into their hands. It let them make smarter decisions and be more agile. And of course, as team members, we were the ultimate owners of our personal plans. We would update them whenever we learned something new about the work. And we'd break down big items as soon as we began working on them so we could see progress. These updates would immediately be reflected in the personal charts we were using to take control. So the team plan and status kind of remained up to date as a side effect of us just doing the work. And of course, we would take time as a team to refresh our plan every few months, as we started a new program increment, refining our backlog and putting together high confidence plans for the next cycle. All of this helped us to see reality and own our commitments and to empower the customer to make informed decisions and to be more agile. So success. I mean, we completed our 8-month project through testing, validation, and release with high quality and all-premise functionality 3 days ahead of schedule. So we're only off by 3 days out of an 8-month plan. That was just wonderful and amazing and a great experience for me. So being on that being on that project really was a revelation for me. We were agile, we were in control, we had mastered our work-life balance, and we delighted the customer with an exceptional product. It was such a great model for working together. I knew it could change the world. So at that time, I embarked on a mission to develop open source tools so other people could use these techniques too. And I've collaborated with some great coaches in the Software Excellence Alliance who have helped people use these ideas to transform their teams and their organizations. So if it's okay, I'd like to just take a few minutes to highlight some of their stories. Starting with Amelia Vanderwerth. Amelia was a star developer in her organization. She had a reputation for saving the day, always being able to pull through in the toughest situations and help make the project a success. But that success came at the cost of great personal sacrifice and non-existent work-life balance. So she hired Alan Willett. He mentored her with skills to be an exceptional engineer. As she began to take more control of her personal work, the flaws in her team plans became more apparent. Speaking up is hard. I mean, it isn't easy to be the bearer of bad news to your team or to management. But Alan helped her to find lighthouse courage and taught her how to share her truth in a way that makes a positive difference. Her team members and managers began coming to her for insight, and she shot to the top of her organization as a thought leader. Her story really is truly inspiring. And so to hear more of it, this presentation is going to be posted online afterward. Download the presentation and follow the link on the slide. You'll be able to watch a presentation she gave on the excitement and empowerment she experienced on her journey. Really encourage you to check it out. Alex Powell had a similar epiphany about taking control. Leveraging his personal data made a profound difference at work, both in ensuring project success and in protecting his work-life balance. It helped him to spot problems weeks in advance instead of a day at a time. And he found out that when he brought data, people listened and volunteered to help in unexpected ways. He was inspired to use these techniques in his personal life as well, and found them to be empowering for all types of work, from his hobbies to his fiance's PhD dissertation. And, great quote from Alex. He noted that entire industries um, are currently built on tiny bits of data they can collect about us. So if our data is so powerful, why aren't we collecting and valuing it ourselves? As before, there's a link here to a great presentation by Alex. Um, I really encourage you to watch it if you haven't seen it. And as a senior developer turned team lead, uh, Dylan's journey was slightly different. He spent weeks trying to take control and he built beautiful plans, but couldn't make significant progress against them. So he went to Julia Mullaney for help, and his data uh, helped him to see reality. His senior developer and tech lead roles could each demand more than a full-time effort. But in spite of that, he was trying to do them both, and he had become the bottleneck for his team. So Alan told him, it's time for you to pick the red pill or the blue pill. He loved being an engineer, so it was hard for him to step away from the keyboard. But his plan helped him realize that he could provide vastly more value to the organization in a team leader role. Taking control of that plan helped him to make smarter trade-offs about where he invested his time. And leading by example, he was able to elevate his team to take control as well. And in an environment where everything was critical all the time, Robert and his team mastered control. The rest of the organization came to know that they were trustworthy and dependable. When they made a plan and a commitment, they could be trusted to deliver. That changed their relationship with management. In Robert's words, they were able to retire the headless chicken suit. Instead of being told what to do and when, management would consult them to build the smartest plan for the work or the crisis ahead and would trust their judgment. They became an example and helped to change the culture of teams across their organization. And finally, Steve Shook's story is also especially remarkable. We always talk about the importance of sustainability, like a sustainable pace, et cetera, in software development. So Steve's organization has demonstrated it with a track history that spans decades. They've shown not only that these ideas work, but that an organization can use them to continually improve. They haven't had a significantly late delivery any time in the past 18 years. And during that time, they've continually improved their speed and reduced their costs while delivering exceptional quality. They offer a money back guarantee on everything they create, and their customer satisfaction has never been higher. So, all of this is endlessly exciting to me. So, where do we go from here? I've just touched on some of the key ideas that transform the way I approach software planning and tracking that make exceptional predictability and control possible. I won't reread them, but I've summarized them here on this slide for future reference. Each one of these is an exciting enabler of exceptional agility. And finally, throughout the talk today, you've seen some exciting techniques for taking control. The great news is that these practices are lightweight additions to the agile methodologies that we're already using, because tools can help with the heavy lifting. As I've mentioned before, I've created a free and open source application called the Process Dashboard that provides support for all the practices that you've seen today. It really is my passionate contribution to the world, because I believe so strongly that these ideas can revolutionize the software industry. But I also understand that most teams would prefer not to switch tools. So I'm working to bring these capabilities to the tools your teams are already using, such as Jira, Azure DevOps, and others. Um, I'm excited about this because it'll make the practices accessible to a much broader audience of Agile practitioners. And It will enable process dashboard teams to take advantage of the rich set of functionality that's available in some of these other mainstream tools. So um, as I do that, I am looking for partners. I would love your help to help shape the user experience so it amplifies the way your team works and integrates with your preferred tools. So if you'd like to be a pioneer in transforming the Agile community and to delight your customers in the process, I invite you to sign up to join the cause or to stay informed on progress. So thank you again for your time today. Feel free to reach out if you'd like more information, and let's change the world of software together.